Hello and welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You may have noticed that I've been gone, and I have been, but I was busy working on the Paralympics and the Olympics, and even got the chance to go to Paris. But more about that later. I had a brilliant time, but I'm really excited to bring back the podcast. I have loads of athletes and coaches lined up, and I'm looking forward to get stuck in over the months ahead. I'm Orla Keeling, and what I want to do is to go beyond the highlights and the big days to find out what it really takes to make it to the top of your game. I'm going to talk to people about their passion, their challenges, and the mindset that drives success. Okay, I'm joined by Ireland's Neal Quinn from the meeting room of the Louis Fitzgerald. Neal, big week ahead for the team?
Yeah, it's absolutely massive for us. 2 big wins here could move us ahead into the next qualifying round, which would be huge for our country.
It would be huge for the country, but then you look at the summer and it's hard not to get excited looking at Sam, CJ, a lot of guys that are still in college as well that would be available in the summer. Like, it's kind of, without getting ahead of ourselves, it's an exciting time for Irish basketball.
No doubt. I definitely think the future is bright with all these young guys coming out. Killian Gribbin as well. A few other guys that are doing their thing over there in America. So hopefully we can get them here as soon as possible, and they'll have great careers, and we can continue to build upon Irish basketball. When
you talk about building, what have you learned from the last couple of games? You've obviously played competitively now and friendlies previously. What have the team learned overall in the last couple of games?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we've locked in on is role identification. At the level that we want to be and the level we're playing at, you have to know what your job is on the team. And, because everybody at their own club has their own role, maybe bigger, maybe less. But to come together as a whole and play great basketball is the only way that you're going to win at this level. And to do that, everybody has to know their job and everybody has to perform at a high level. So what's your job in the team? You walked yourself into that one. Yeah, I did, didn't I? Fulty told me, Coach Fulton said, your job is, there should be no doubts that you're the American on the team. Whether that's scoring, whether that's rebounding, or whether that's getting other guys involved, it's just having a greater presence, which I think I did last window that I didn't do in the Denmark series. So, hopefully as I've continued to get better and more acclimated to European basketball, I think I'll continue to improve. I think it's fairly obvious here, the American. We don't have many 7'2" guys walking around Ireland. When did you take the growth spurt to 7'2"? Was that a sudden jump? No, I've always been the tallest person. Just ever since I was a kid, and I just kept growing and growing and growing and didn't really stop. Did you have a point people talk about like their joints or their muscles are trying to catch up on their joints? Was there a point where you kind of had to take a break or anything like that? No, I never really stopped playing. Surely I had some knee pains or whatever all over the place, but the more I think when I got to college and I really locked in on improving strength and improving, working on my body, I think most of that pain has kind of gone away. Maisie had a great question. She put it on Instagram. She wanted to know, what was your dream as a kid? It was always to be a basketball player, I think. I think I have we used to do a time capsule in middle school, I don't know, primary school here. Yeah. And, even in 5th grade, it was, get a college scholarship, be a professional basketball player. So, I'm doing my 5th grade self proud, I hope. And who was the first person to put a basketball in your hand? Was it a family influence or? Yeah, it definitely was. Nobody in my family played basketball, like my parents or nothing. But, obviously being a tall kid in America, you don't really have much of a choice. They just hand you a basketball and say, go play. Yep, pretty much. And when did it become a reality? Because you can have height, but you need talent and you need work ethic to make it to Division 1 college level in America. Like, when did it start to click for you on the court? Yeah, I mean, I think I was good as a kid. And then as people started to develop, hit puberty, whatever, and I was always the chubby kid, so I kind of struggled a bit until I hit puberty and I really decided, hey, this is what I want to do with my life. And, I really locked in and worked as hard as possible. And then I think at around 17, 18, had a few good years in college. And I thought, right, well, this is my path for sure. And what's it like? You've been in Ireland the last week, and we've a number of Irish kids in America, and it's absolutely brilliant to see when you go through that kind of decision over there to go and pursue
college basketball. What are the supports that are in America that we don't necessarily have here to help you as a high school athlete make it to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of it is competition. You know, you could go into any park in America pretty much and find a good game. Like, you know, every state has really good basketball players, and they have a lot of facilities that are dedicated towards basketball and you know, trainers and weight rooms, stuff like that. People that are, it's a business in getting you better. It's an investment that you put into yourself. And I think that part of that is lacking over here. You know, there's not a lot of, you know, gyms where you can go into and you can get a good trainer and you can get a good weight room access. You know, it's tough being a semi-professional league, but, you know, hopefully as guys continue to get better and come back here, that the quality of competition can improve, you know, starting with the players, and then hopefully that can expand into, you know, facilities and whatnot.
I heard a line before, correct me if I'm wrong, is college basketball basically a load of athletes playing basketball rather than basketball players playing basketball?
I don't know. I think it depends on school to school. You know, obviously at the highest level, I mean, athlete or no athlete, like, they're hoopers. Like, you know, you don't just magically end up at a high level, you know. I'd say, like, you know, there's some schools, sure, there are more athletics. Sure, some schools or maybe you're more skilled or have, you know, better offensive schemes or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's basketball is basketball. Whoever wins the game are the better group of basketball players, and it shouldn't be worried about athletes or not athletes. It's about winning the game.
What's the most overlooked or overrated skill in the game for kids here that want to play at a high level? Is there anything that we're not coaching or over-coaching?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, you know, obviously shooting here isn't much of a problem. I think there's a lot of good shooters here, but it's about, I think the biggest problem is headspace. You know, guys have to know how good they are in comparison to the rest of the world. Like, sure, you might be the best player in your club. Sure, you might be the best player in your county. Like, you're going to go to America, and, you know, Ireland's the size of New Jersey. You got 49 other states and thousands of other people that are probably working harder than you, and I think that's the most important thing, is that guys can't get ahead of themselves. Like, you're probably not as good as you think you are. Sure, it happens to me all the time. Like, you have to realize that what you're doing is not enough, no matter what. Like, what got you here, what got you to the level you're at, is not going to get you to the next level. So continuing to be locked in, humble, and improving yourself is probably the most important thing.
So when you made that jump, you went to Lafayette. Interested to hear as well your kind of recruitment process and why you picked there, but what did you find was the biggest jump then, going from high school to college?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it was my only offer coming out of high school. Granted, I committed early and was kind of a late bloomer, but you know, Coach O'Hanlon was my first offer at Lafayette, and I took it. And I'd say, you know, I came in as a cocky, I think I just turned 18 at the time, but cocky, like, hey, you know, these guys can check me, you know. And sure, I got humbled real quick. Like, it's the way it is. You know, everyone's faster, everyone's stronger, everyone's more athletic, everyone can shoot better, whatever it is. Like, so you have to really ground yourself, say, right, I'm not where I need to be. This is what I need to do. I need to listen to my coaches. I need to get in the weight room. I need to do extra stuff to get to the level that they're at, and then hopefully exceed them and get a starting spot.
What's the standard of the Patriot League that Lafayette would have competed in, and what kind of skills would you come up against, even some non-conference games?
Sure. I mean, you know, I played in Cameron Indoor and Duke. I played, you know, at the RAC twice at Rutgers, Syracuse, you know, Coach Boeheim's last year. Like, the non-conference is tough. Like, a lot of teams, you'll look at the record of the Patriot League, and my first year we were great because we only had a few of those games. You know, we played a lot of Ivy League schools and we did well, but you look at the non-conference record of Patriot League schools right now, it's tough. Like, you're playing against high majors all the time. You got to play bye games, and then you go into the Patriot League, and a team like Colgate will start off the year 2-11 and be 17-1 in conference play. Like, night in, night out, you have to be ready to perform. Like, you know, it is what it is. Like, no one's as bad as their record, or no one's as good as their record thinks they are.
What's the jump then when you go to, you've named big schools and you're talking about, you know, Cameron and you know, Syracuse and all these really cool arenas, but on the court, what's the jump then basketball-wise?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of it is, you know, it depends what school you're playing against. For example, Boston College I played against, and, you know, they had Quentin Post as a center. This was my fifth year, so I was a little bit more experienced at this time, but, you know, he's a phenomenal player playing in the NBA right now. But it's not like you had to worry about his athleticism necessarily. It was his skill. It was his ability to manipulate the game.
But, I played against Jesse Edwards at Syracuse my first year, or Paulo Banchero, Mark Williams at Duke. And, but Paulo's a little bit different because he's all the above. But, you have to worry about Mark Williams' length, speed, athleticism, and same with Jesse Edwards. So you kind of get humbled real quick. Hey, guys can move like this, and you have to figure out how to get close enough to stop them. I'd say that was probably the biggest difference.
In your junior year, I think CJ joined, former podcast guest, obviously one of the best Irish basketball players at the moment, currently in America. In his senior year, what's he like as a teammate? I'm looking for a few exclusives, Neal.
Sure, he's a great teammate. He's a bit of an Egypt, I have to say myself. Sorry if you're listening to this kid. But, I'll give you a CJ Fulton story. One of the first days he was in college with me, he lost his phone 3 times. He's a bit of numbskull, but he's probably one of my favorite teammates ever. I think we played 3-on-3 one of the first days he was there. And, his feel for the game and my feel for the game were exactly the same. It felt like I had been playing with this kid for 10 years already, and I just met him a week ago. But he's such a level-headed, humble kid. I love playing with CJ. I hope I can continue to play with him for a long time.
What's he like on the court? People talk about just his IQ, as you say, the feel for the game. Just describe what it's actually like to share the floor with him.
Yeah, sure. It's great. He could really shoot the pill. He's an excellent cutter. I'm sure I love playing with him as much as he loved playing with me because I love throwing the back doors and whatnot. But, he has a very good sense for the game. He's very active. Maybe not the best on-ball defender, although he's been doing better now. But, he gets a lot of steals, a lot of deflections. He's always in the right spot, at the right time. So it's really a joy to play with CJ.
What was it then? I think you did was it 4 years you did at Lafayette and then decided to take a 5th year, was it?
It was 3 at Lafayette. I think COVID happened my second year at Lafayette, so I would get another year, so I would have 3 at Lafayette and 2 at the University of Richmond.
And what went into the decision to move to University of Richmond?
Sure, CJ came to my team, so I had to leave him. No. But, Coach O'Hanlon had announced his retirement about halfway through the year. I'd been playing really well at that point, and I thought personally, selfishly, the best way for me to improve was to go to a place with a higher level of competition, a higher level of investment into basketball, and somebody with a great strength and conditioning coach, because I felt like that was my biggest weakness, and going to Richmond was one of the best decisions of my life.
What was the jump like in standard, and what league did you go to?
So I went from the Patriot League to the Atlantic 10. You got Dayton, VCU, St. Louis. You got really high caliber teams, and I'd say the biggest jump was just night in and night out. It's going to be a grind, no matter who you're playing. We struggled my first year, and I definitely struggled in particular, transitioning from my role in the Patriot League to my role at Richmond, which wasn't necessarily different, but in my mind it was, I think. Just different nuances of the game that I had to learn. Things that worked at Lafayette didn't work at Richmond, and so I had to adjust, and by year 2 I did. But yeah, it was definitely a great leap, but I definitely think I did pretty well at it.
When we're talking about college basketball at the moment, there's so much talk about NIL. Just interested to hear your thoughts as someone that's played, at 2 different leagues. Just NIL as an athlete, college athlete. Did you have much experience with it? It came around my junior year at Lafayette, but it was in its infancy. The collectives and stuff didn't really form till my last year at Richmond. And I think it's great I think it's a tricky thing, because I definitely think athletes deserve to be paid, but at the same time, it's essentially a professional sport, but it's not a two-way street. It's mostly just good for the players, which, hey, I'm a player, I'm all for it, but at some point, I think it's just got to be professional, where guys have to sign contracts, guys can be terminated, guys can be picked up. I don't think eligibility is going to be a thing for much longer, just because it's a professional sport and all the lawsuits. It's pretty much what the NCAA have gotten away with for a while is criminal, and them not being able to adjust led to this kind of just vastness of what's going on. And certainly it'll be reined back in at some point and be professional. Yeah. Interesting. Just it's good to hear your thoughts, because there's so much talk about it, but it's good to hear your perspective. I do want to ask about CJ and Adrian Fulton were a bit of a catalyst for you playing for Ireland. What's the backstory there? Yeah, so
my coach had called me into the office, said, yeah, we're getting an Irish kid. Sure, he knew I was Irish with an Irish background, my father being Irish and whatnot. But when CJ came here, and I was like, yeah, my passport, one of the worst decisions I ever made was getting my passport 3 months after my birthday or whatever, my 16th birthday. So now I'm the naturalized guy.
That's just typical, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so Irish, always late.
And was that on your radar growing up, that they're, looking across the water to ourselves?
Not really. Just, I didn't know at that point in time that basketball was going to be 100% my future. And yeah, I think some people maybe have tried to set that in motion, but me personally, I wasn't doing enough to put myself on that radar, so I can't really blame anybody else but myself.
What's your perception of Irish basketball overall? You've been here for the week now. I know the lads from ANA, some of the under-13s were training with yourself. You've been at a Belfast Star game in the Super League. Just interested to hear your thoughts as someone coming in with kind of fresh eyes, with experience in other countries. What's the standard like and the perception of Irish basketball?
Yeah, being in France, it's obviously different. It's impossible to compare the two, given that one's a semi-professional league and one's a professional league. So obviously the standard of play, the standard of work is going to be different. You practice twice a day in France, and then every pretty much 6 days a week for the most part, sometimes 2 days, and some teams here practice 3 times a week or something like that. So it's impossible for the game to adjust without significant investment and guys being allowed to be full-time professionals. I think you saw that similar with rugby. Once the rugby lads got full-on support and nutrition and weight room stuff, and they blossomed into this phenomenal team, I think there needs to be a similar investment with Irish basketball, and it's a partnership. It's not just money needs to be sent, it's money needs to be spent the right way, and players need to utilize that money so people can see that investments are paying off.
That's a great point. I actually never thought of that reference to the rugby team. Like, they're only professional in the last 20 years, probably a little bit more, maybe 30 years now. And as you say, it's a partnership about where we use the money and where we use it properly. Not just throwing money and just expecting results. It's about actually planning for it. You mentioned you're playing in France. Just interested to hear, when did the professional basketball side of things, when did that, you mentioned basketball, you weren't sure if it would be your long-term future, but when did that start to kind of click into your head?
Yeah, I'd say probably around about 20, maybe a year or two before. But, Coach O'Hanlon, he's a veteran of professional basketball. He's been all over the world playing. He's got contacts everywhere, and that's how I got my job right now. But when I kept improving and kept getting better, he was like, hey, this could be a path for you. And, it's something that I wanted to do. And, obviously going to Richmond helped a lot, transforming my body and whatnot, making me a better player. But really the professional aspect started with him.
And what's the biggest jump when you're going from college basketball, where you're training a lot, but now it's your full-time job?
Yeah, I'd say it's different sometimes. For me, I don't really see it much of a job. Like, this is my life. Like, there's nothing else I'd rather do. But obviously sometimes it's a lot. Your body starts to hurt. It's mentally fatiguing. Especially, even in college, like around this time of year, it's tough. February is a brutal month. Like, you're playing for, and as a pro, I started August 6th or something like that. Started preseason. In college, you start in November, but you play so many games in a row that it could be just physically, mentally draining. But just finding that second gear and finishing out the year strong is so important and makes you energized for the next year.
You mentioned the mental aspect, and even that second gear, mentally, how do you stay fresh? And while, they say do what you love and you never work a day in your life, is that true as a professional basketball player?
Absolutely. I don't consider this a job at all. Like, it's so much fun. I just get to play basketball all day and do nothing else. Like, it's great. But yeah, I definitely would recommend the lifestyle but I wouldn't recommend it if you don't love the game. Like, it's hard to do this thing if you don't love it. Like, you'll just end up falling down the ranks. Like, if you're going to be in it, you have to be all in or don't do it at all.
Is it what you expected, being a professional?
Yeah, I think so. It's not too, and granted, I had great leaders in front of me at Lafayette who I kind of got their work ethic, and their work ethic was very professional. Justin Jaworski, to name one, the way he worked and the way that I carried that with me to Richmond, with Richmond facilities and Richmond specializing training, like, it really propelled my career up. So a lot of credit to the guys in front of me that showed me the ropes.
What's the level of the league? And what actual league is it? I don't know. I wouldn't be familiar with the French leagues.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of leagues in France. Pro A, Betclic Elite is one and the same. That's the top league. Pro B is the second league. That's the league that I'm in. It's a fully professional league. Almost every team has a really nice arena. I think it's one American, so not me, like an American with only an American passport, and then continental Europe guys, I think, or something like that. I don't really know too much how it works, but I count as one of those three.
You're cheating.
Yeah, I'm cheating. I count as one of those three, and the rest are French guys.
Okay, because that was one of the things when you put up when you got MVP recently in a game with that kind of dream shake move as well. I know you were on the mic as well, chanting "Vive la France" to the crowd. I was like, geez, because I wasn't sure what level it was, and I was like, God, this is a huge arena. Like, it seems to be a huge amount of support behind the team.
Yeah, so that gym is not our main gym. Unfortunately, it's actually the handball arena, one of the oldest handball teams in France, in Chambéry. But yeah, I had actually been rehearsing that for a few days prior. I was waiting on the right moment, the right game, and I got the mic and I introduced my Duolingo work.
Brilliant. Come here, Maisie had another question. She wants to know, what's the favourite team you've ever played on?
I played on a lot of good teams, but I have to say my last year at Richmond, A10 regular season champions. I had some phenomenal teammates, a lot of great moments. I wouldn't trade back that year for anything. It was class.
Who was the best player you've played with? You've mentioned a lot of guys you've played against, but best player you've played with and where they are now?
Well, it's not CJ, but sure, I'll go with it's got to be Jordan King at Richmond. He's player of the year. Justin Jaworski, honorable mention. He was phenomenal too. But Jordan King, the way he would just win us games at times, like, he was absolutely unguardable. He had 37 on the opening night. Unbelievable. And he had 27 at halftime or something like that. We pulled him out with 10 minutes to go. Like, he was unbelievable.
I do need to ask this week, huge opportunity. What can you expect from Switzerland and then travelling to Azerbaijan? And is that a challenge with the extra travel?
Yeah, I mean this in the most respectful way possible, but Switzerland are robotic in that they are going to do the right thing every single time, and you're going to have to beat them every single time. They will not beat themselves. They're very well coached. They have a lot of talent, and they run their stuff. And you have to be able to go in there, be tough enough to handle physicality, and be mentally sharp enough to continue to run your stuff. And hopefully, at the end of the day, you're going to win. But it's going to be because you beat them, not because they beat themselves. In Azerbaijan, they're a little bit more tricky. They have, they have some really good Americans over there. So it depends on who they bring out. But they'll be a good team. I definitely think that it's going to be a significant challenge in Baku. But we need to win if we're going to advance. So it's a must win.
Brilliant. I'm going to move on to the sideline 7. I have given you a heads up on these, all right? So I'm expecting some pretty good answers. Question 1, Neal, what's your favourite quote?
What got you here is not going to get you there.
Question 2, best sporting event you've been to, and pick one as a fan and then one that you've played in.
One as a fan, Katie Taylor fight, Madison Square Garden, the first one against Serrano. Unbelievable experience.
Wow.
Unbelievable night.
Best game you've played in, or most kind of biggest event?
Knocking off number 16 Dayton at home my last year at Richmond with the court storm. Unbelievable moment.
Wow, that's special. Question 3, biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's, there's so many little moments. I wouldn't necessarily say I've had a major injury or anything like that. Sure, I've been out for a little bit, but, I've been, knock on wood, I've been lucky enough to not have anything significant. But for me, it was probably when I was around 16, 17. I didn't know if it was what I wanted to do anymore. And, I struggled to gain the momentum myself. I think I needed a little push, and I got that from one of I call him like my big brother, Kyle. He helped me out a lot. He used to work out with me every day after school, and I used to play pickup with the old heads at the New York Sports Club. And, I'd say that was a defining moment of my career, and that was how I bounced back into the path to become a professional.
On the flip side then, what's your biggest achievement on or off the court?
I'd say winning a championship at Richmond. I think it was the first one in school history. I think we had one of the longest win streaks in Richmond, going back to like 1920. So I'd say that was probably my biggest achievement on the court. Off the court, probably getting a college degree. I mean, I guess where I'm from is what you're supposed to do, but like it's still an accomplishment nonetheless.
Looking back, you're still a young man, but what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Don't be cocky, man. You're not as good as you think you are. Keep your head down, work hard, listen to your coaches, and just be a good person, because at the end of the day, being a good person goes a long way. Like, I think, pardon my French, but I watched the Mind the Game podcast with LeBron, and he was talking about the cat, right? So, you have the cat, but if the shit gets bigger than the cat, you get rid of the cat, right? So minimize all the shit possible and be the best cat you could be.
Yeah. I'm delighted for JJ Redick, but I really miss him
I
and his
know.
podcast and
Excellent.
Mind the Game. It was amazing. Dream dinner guest and why? Everyone cheats. You can pick a few if you want.
Nah, I'd go with my granddad every day of the week. I mean, he's gone now, but he, seeing the man that he was as a Gaelic football player, a really phenomenal Gaelic football player for, back in the day, but to be where he is now, kind of as he was almost a professional athlete, but you couldn't be, but to be able to have that one-on-one conversation with him, to show him who the man I am now would be awesome.
Brilliant. Final question before I let you join your team dinner. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
I'd say the grind. The rookie year is tough. I kind of, my last year being in college, you're so experienced, you're like kind of the man, and then you come to Europe and you've been humbled a few times and you just got to find a way to stick it through. I'd say right now I'm in a grind point in my life, but I love these kind of things.
Brilliant. I look forward to not only this week, but beyond. And thanks, William, for your time.
Thank you.